A huge welcome to everyone for being here on day 2, for coming back. Continued learning. How many of you had the opportunity to watch the replay? And today's your first day with us live. How many of you were able to work on the homework? Did you work on Tristan's song or did you work on your own? What did you think of volume-only mixing as a start? How did that feel to you? Was it fun? Did you have a good time with it?
Me. Great tip. Worked on my own song. Wowzers. Great. Reveals honesty. Game changer. Felt great.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
For all of you following along, that's a great way to learn. You know, we're working together here. You get to watch it, and then you get to experience it. That's a wonderful way to learn. In terms of introductions, if you weren't here yesterday, my name's Caleb Lovelace. I'm the Director of Education for Mastering.com. We train engineers and producers. We have Michael Gilbride right below me. He's the
I've been sending the school link to the hosts and panelists.
Ooh, rookie move.
That's why. There it is.
Rookie move. One job, Michael.
Dang, sorry.
Michael,
I was getting annoyed too. I was like, they keep asking.
This is now a pattern.
Just as you're getting introduced as our general manager.
Well, Michael Gilbride was our general manager at Mastering.com. He's the reason you're all here. He's been sending out the emails. He's been lining up our sponsors. He's been facilitating the school group for everybody to have a platform for communication. School group's cool, right? It's just a place you could be surrounded by a bunch of other musicians, ask questions, hang out, connect with people, network. It's all free. There's no gimmick there. It's just something we thought is really cool and could add community to this, opportunity. So you should join. It's just a cool place to. It's like Facebook without everyone else. It's like it's like Facebook without politics.
That's a great. I'm gonna submit that to school as their future tagline. It's like Facebook without everybody else. We have almost 20,000 people in the Fix the Mix group now. It's turned into a pretty vibrant community.
You guys are funny today.
We also have Lucy Warr with us today. We've done her tracks before on this. If you don't know, her songs are phenomenal. They're blowing up. She's an incredible artist. Her voice is unreal. London's Falling. How's that song doing, Lucy?
It's doing good. You guys have been so supportive. It's in the Fix the Mix community as well. All the stems and people have been messaging saying they're having a go at it. So love it. It's really cool.
The honest truth is that I'm terrified of Lucy leaving to pursue music. So I keep trying to find ways to make it more beneficial for her to stay here. So if you can all go stream her song, Lucy Warr, then she'll continue working here. And that would make me very happy. So go out and support Lucy.
I'm not going to leave you, Michael. You're good.
We love having her with us. She's our student success specialist. So we do have an online program, a 2-year program for engineers and producers. She, as soon as someone signs up, they have a conversation with Lucy as well as other people. But she's in touch with them a lot, making sure they're staying on track, making sure they have all their questions and tech set up and they're doing everything and not getting off the path or feeling isolated or anything. She helps them along the way. The students love her. She's incredible at her job. She's really passionate about helping people. So we're really happy to have her. And then we obviously have Mr. Jake Codeweiss again. He's been doing the demonstrations. He's one of the mentors in our program. He is a professional mix and mastering engineer and producer. Produces great stuff too. Does a ton of licensing work. And we're thankful to have him with us here today as well. We're also thankful to our sponsor, Mastering the Mix. They've been so kind to make this an opportunity for everyone, a free Fix the Mix. They're very supportive. Again, we only partner with people. You can see some of the people we partner with on our website, but we only partner with people who we like their work, their plugins, their hardware, whatever else it is, that they do a good job, they have a good culture, and we're thankful to have Mastering the Mix helping us out. Check out their plugins. They're really cool. They're very intuitive. They are very powerful features.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked them out, go give them a look. So, day one, what should you have done? Either taken those multi-track session from Tristan and started working on that, or worked on your own, but you started over. So you saved an alternate, you did a save as, whatever else it was. You removed all the processing plugins, you gained stage properly, you brought everything down to negative infinity, and then you did a volume-only mix. And I already asked, it seems like that went over well. It's a good challenge to push yourself. How much can I paint in those 3 dimensions of space I talked about yesterday? With just volume, you can do so much. It is your most powerful tool. It will shape your mixes more than any other tool by far. I hope you had a fun time with that, and that changed a little bit of the mentality. And it also allows you to work with a lot more intention. We worked with intention in painting those in those 3 dimensions of space, but we also took notes as we went through what stuff couldn't be solved with just volume. That's what we're going to work on now, but with a ton more direction because we've already identified the issues. We're not just going in and feeling lost and throwing plugins on everything because we think we need to. We're working to solve the problems we hear and then going from there. It's a great way to work. It's a great mindset. Hope you all had a good time with that. It was the power of volume, the power of intention, and all of it really is about efficiency and precision. A lot of times when I'm working with intermediate to advanced students, they're skilled at what they do. They just don't quite yet have enough instinct. There's some gaps in the knowledge. And I found a lot of times that difference between 80 and 100% in terms of your skill level is just speeding up your whole process, having objective ears longer, having a better room, having better ear training, knowing your tools more deeply, knowing your process more deeply so that you can work with more efficiency and precision. And when you speed up that process, something happens where you're able to just do a lot more in that objective mindset. You get a lot farther. I find that to be the thing that really pushes people past those barriers that they face sometimes in their growth. We also talked about some of the mastering mindset. So yesterday we talked about the PAS analyzer, or essentially what we're talking about are frequency analyzers. We should all be using them to understand where our mixes are sitting. There's so much we can learn about our tracks, about our mixes, about our masters by using these powerful tools to see where buildups are happening, to see sibilances that are happening, see problems in our mix, and more importantly, comparing those to the references we have. It's too easy, again, to get off the rails of objectivity. It's too easy to have ear fatigue, to get too used to what you're hearing. Your mind starts playing tricks on you. You start hearing stuff that's not there, and all of a sudden you take a break and come back and be like, what was I thinking? What is going on here? Have you ever had that experience where you come back to a mix and you're just like, where was I going? This is just all over the place. That goes back to efficiency and precision, but also anchoring yourself to something technical and objective, not just your own mind that can start to play tricks on you. So hopefully that was a useful tool, something that mastering engineers use. You don't have to wait till mastering to do it. You can start using that in the mix, and I hope that was a powerful thing for you. All right, goals for today. To better understand when and why to control frequencies. We're refining. This is the last 20%. Yesterday we got 80% of the way there. Today we're refining that last 20% in terms of frequencies, dynamics, same thing. We're going to control the dynamics a little bit. I don't know if you noticed yesterday, but most of the track was sitting at that -6 dBFS, but there were some spikes probably in the drums that were pushing. You could tell there were some transients that were not controlled. And as a mix engineer, if you've never mastered, you go, well, that's not a big deal, right? I'll just send that over to master. But the problem is if you receive that as a mastering engineer, you can't use your tools properly. It will cause your mastering compressors, for example, to overreact and not be the glue that it's supposed to be. It's worrying about taming these big transients, not just gluing the track and being subtle. So it's something that you really have to fix in the mix and not save for the master. We'll talk about that today. And we're going to get into spatial processing. This is something I think a lot of people struggle with. Poor use of spatial processing is the number one thing that can make your mixes sound quite amateurish if not used correctly. Does anyone struggle with reverbs and delays, making it sound that top 40 polished sound? It's kind of tricky. We're going to give you...
My early mixes were.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, I wouldn't even touch frequencies and dynamics and just like immediately bring in the reverb.
It's a powerful tool. We'll talk about how to use it more effectively today and give you a nice process for using that today and tomorrow. And then a little bit more about the mastering mindset. So yesterday we talked about frequency analysis tools. Today we're going to talk about dynamic analysis tools, another thing you can use in the mix to prepare it more effectively for mastering. It's all about the instrumentals today, so not vocals. Tomorrow is going to be a full-on vocal day, everything vocals. But today it's about getting those instrumentals polished, sounding great. So let's switch gears to mixing. Let's do this.
Woo!
Let's focus on a few things. I'll keep this pretty brief, but I want to talk about one high-level concept for each of these principles that I just mentioned. EQ could be really tricky. It is, again, supposed to be that polish. It's not supposed to do the heavy lifting. But I think we can still struggle with that. And probably one of the most common thing I see people making the mistake of is not being aggressive enough when it comes to their EQs, or putting EQ on everything and doing too much. So those are the two things I want to think about today. First, assuming everything needs EQ. You don't have to assume that. You don't have to put an EQ on every channel. In fact, what you'll see Jake do today is only solve the problems that really need it. You'll see he doesn't use EQs on every channel, for example. But when he does use them, you'll see that he's often more aggressive than you might expect. The key to EQ is to think more globally than locally when it comes to carving out these mid frequencies and these other problem frequencies we often come by. I think what happens with people is they start EQing, so they solo a track and they start to think about clearing out some mud or something like that. And in solo, they start making these moves, but they want the sound in and of itself to sound good. So they do just enough to keep the individual tracks sounding good, and then they unsolo it and they listen to it again. The problem is that we don't care about how it sounds in solo. That doesn't matter. What we really care about is how it sounds in context. And so we need to think more globally about this and understand the psychoacoustic things that happens when we have a multi-track session. Most people are never able to get enough of that mid-range carved out, and I think it's because they're thinking too locally, trying to make things sound good on their own. What you can do, and what you'll see Jake do today when he goes in and starts clearing out a lot of that mud, he'll do massive cuts that if soloed, it sounds kind of weird. But in context, it sounds right. Because what happens is those frequencies that are missing now in a particular instrument, there's lots of other stuff happening in the range that the cut was made in. And so what the ear hears is as if that particular instrument is sounding as it should or more full, because those frequencies are accounted for. So the real process is, instead of soloing, think globally and then pick the most important parts of each of the sounds that are sitting in those ranges that are masking and cluttering up. We talked about masking yesterday. That's what we mean by that. Where are buildups happening? Pick the most important parts of each of those sounds, cut out everything else, and then when you put them together, you'll get clarity on the individual tracks. They'll sound as if they're whole. They'll sound as if they're the way they should sound. When you put them together, that's how it should sound, right? So don't think individually. Don't get scared when you solo it and it sounds like it's in a tin can. We even had an experience yesterday listening to that. We pulled up the piano, and the piano itself sounded a little bit kind of bright and just straightforward, kind of almost not harsh, but really pointy in the upper mids. It had almost no low end. But when you put that in the track, since there's already a lot of stuff in those mids, the piano didn't really need to be there. You just needed to hear that kind of resonant attack of that piano in the more upper ranges. You remember that, Jake?
Oh, yeah.
So let's stop thinking locally about EQ, okay? We need to think more globally and how it works together, and understand that concept that the ear will hear it accurately if you do that correctly. Harder to explain, easier to show you, so Jake's going to show you that today, and we'll get a nice section with that. The next is Jake is a master of using clippers and limiters as opposed to compressors. It's one of his cool tricks that he does. But I want to explain for a second when he uses clippers and limiters and when he uses compressors and why. Clippers and limiters are really great and really fast at controlling dynamics. So if really all you're doing is controlling dynamics and transients, getting things sitting a little bit better, clippers and limiters are much easier. Why? Because they're usually a more simple plugin. It's usually one knob, and all you're doing is trimming a transient for dynamic control. As opposed to a compressor where you have to dial in 5 or 6 different things to make it do the same thing, a clipper or limiter is just one knob. If you know Jake, he loves simple tools. It's part of how he speeds up the process. Doesn't mean compressors are obsolete. He'll still use those too. But when he uses those, it's more about enhancement. It's either a really tricky thing he has to control, so there's a rare time where there needs to be a little bit more control over a really weird or tricky transient, so he wants those tools. He wants the extra 5 knobs to do that. But most of the time, 90% of the time, it's actually about expanding dynamics, giving kicks more punch, giving snares more pop, making things come to life. Compressors are really good at that, and sometimes you need those fine-tuning details to do it. But when it comes to controlling dynamics, clippers and limiters are often a lot better for that. And so he's going to give you a nice masterclass in how to use those today. You'll, if you follow him, use a lot more clippers and limiters in the future and a lot less compressors. It's pretty cool. It's a great way to enhance your workflow and speed things up. So let's watch for that. And then the last thing to watch for today is how Jake does spatial processing. I don't know how much it will need, Jake. You'll have to decide. A lot of times that stuff is baked in. But either way, I want to talk about spatial processing and why it's so hard to get right. There's a few things that happen. There's a few things I see students doing a lot of times that causes that amateurish sound when it comes to reverbs and delays. First off, it's used to cover up problems. Jake was saying a minute ago he used to get on and just start throwing reverbs on everything. And the reason we do that mentally is because reverbs sound good. You put it on stuff, it kind of makes everything sound a little bit better. Especially if there are problems with it, it covers them up. But that in and of itself is the problem. We have to solve all that stuff before we use spatial processing. We should never use it to cover up problems. In fact, we save this step kind of for the end as the frosting on the cake, the cherry on top, not as something that covers up problems. Those we fix. Any enhancement or problems that need to be done, we do that. And then spatial processing is just the cherry on top. And that's how you get that great, incredible sound when it comes to reverbs and delays. They're not overused. They're not covering everything up. And they don't stop us from being able to hear the problems because we use them too early in the process or use them too aggressively. We also need to make sure that they're consistent with the emotional scene. This is kind of an advanced concept, but every song has an emotion that we as mix engineers need to be aware of. We said yesterday we're there to honor and enhance the emotion that the producer intended. Not every reverb and delay has the same emotion. They're different. Different spaces, different decay times, different frequencies, different types, all have different emotion. And we have to make sure we're not just throwing one on there that we always like to use because it's easy, but finding the one that really works for the emotion of the track. Be really connected to it. And then lastly, we need to find the sweet spot between diverse enough spatial processing and too diverse. So what does that mean? Not diverse enough means you're just putting like one or two kinds of reverbs on everything. And what tends to happen when you do that is that it takes away a lot of the clarity and transparency of individual instruments. Nothing has separation anymore. Separation is a word we use in mixing when we achieve everything having its own space, everything having clarity, everything having identity. Whereas too diverse means we have tons of different reverbs on everything. And so you've created separation, but it's too much separation where everything's starting to feel chaotic and disjointed. So there's like a sweet spot between not diverse enough, meaning it's too one note, there's no separation, and too separated so that everything's chaotic. You want it to have separation, but also be able to glue together. That's a hard balance for most people to find. That's why this is tricky for people. It has to be somewhere in between. So we came up with a method that really helps you find that sweet spot. Jake's going to talk about that today and probably tomorrow with the vocals. What is the sweet spot between diverse enough we get separation, but not so diverse that it starts to sound disjointed and chaotic? That's what it's all about. So, to refresh, being more aggressive with our EQs, but using them less often, thinking globally when it comes to EQs and not locally. Even someone mentioned yesterday something about how they were EQing a snare, but it was sounding weird on its own. And I wanted to say, don't solo it. It only matters how it sounds in context. That's totally different. Secondly, a master class on limiters and clippers, how to control dynamics quicker and more effectively, and how to enhance with compression. And thirdly, trying to find the sweet spot when it comes to spatial processing. Those are the three things I want you to focus on today as Jake does his demonstration. And then after a time here, we're also going to look at some dynamics tools that can help us stay within a good range in our mixes, some mastering tools. We'll come back to that. But I'll hand it over for now to Jake. It's your time, man.
Thanks, Caleb.
You got it.
Ready to go? Ready to jump into the DAW? Give me a 406,778. If you're ready to go. Who was paying attention? Many of you were paying attention. Well done. Well done. Lucy's going to send each of you a cookie in the mail.
Might be stale and horrible by the time it gets to most of you, but
But a cookie nonetheless. All right. Going to bring up the DAW here. And we're going to play a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of an audio check. Can you hear this? Let me know. No.
No.
See if I got some internal routing turned on. Try. How about now? Yes. Sweet. I figured it out. Cool. All right. So today we are focusing on instrumentals. We're focusing on frequencies, dynamics, and spatial processing. We're going to go ahead and move through this. Let's just take a listen to the track. We're going to start off just by listening all the way through and observing some things. I'm going to write down some notes, some things that I'm hearing, and then we'll kind of go through that punch list item by item. So let's do it. Sick. Cool. I mean, this is in pretty good shape so far. Just a little bit of tightening up to kind of do here, right? I'm going to start with the drums. Let's dig right in. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time jibba-jabbing. Let's get right into it. What do you think? Got a lot to do here. So, yeah, my first kind of like thought here is getting these drums to sound like they belong together, right? So right now, all of these sounds sound so separate from each other, right? You know, the snare, the crash, the hi-hats, the kick, the toms, they sound like all different samples that were pulled from like different areas and things like that, rather than a cohesive kind of drum kit, right? I don't know if they're all stock sounds, guys. I have no idea. But you know, I don't mind that low end on the kick as much. Right now, we might just come back to that. My kind of first order of business is these toms. Right? Do do do. Right. So what I'd like to do is kind of bring these closer to our snare drum. Right, we got this nice like full snare drum that's going on here, and then we've got these toms that are pretty thin. Right, so I think there's some opportunity here. We're just gonna kind of sweep through and see what we can find in terms of some kind of fattening frequencies. It's gonna get a little annoying. And I'm actually going to take down this attack just a little bit over here too. Let's see if we can drop that a bit more. Can't really drop that too much. I'm gonna play with it some more. Just kind of like molding these toms a little bit. So that's a good start. Pump these up a little bit more. I'm just gonna play around with a few things. So what this does, this is just a low end boost, right? Without, and then with, without, with, right? Just adding a little bit of beef down there. I might add just a little bit more, just a touch. Let's see. This is like a harmonics based boost EQ, right? So it's very simple, high end, low end, you know, just like this one, high end, low end. This is an actual EQ, to my understanding anyway. This is an actual EQ, and Revival actually adds frequency content, right? So it's kind of like a harmonic. Should be able to hear that, right? And then jacked up, right? So just kind of trying to thicken up those toms. So that they're on the same page as the snare drum. Finding the sweet spot. Delicate dance. You know what? I'm not even gonna bother with these. You guys are gonna get a little treat today. Going off script. Going off script, Caleb.
That's good. Someone suggested this anyway.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How many toms are there in this track? 3? Does that sound like 3? Sounds like 1, 2, 3 to me. We're gonna replace them. So I'm gonna break them out into different tracks first. If I can figure out how things work. There we go. Based on the transients. Just kind of cutting this out. One, 2, 3.
You'll see, Raya.
Don't worry, this is all gonna come together, guys. Okay.
There are several different ways to do this same move, so.
Yeah, this is actually the long way. I didn't want to use like Logic sounds. I want to use a very specific plugin.
If anyone's keen, I would do this probably in Battery. Jake's going to do it in the Slate one, right?
Yeah, Trigger.
Trigger. Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah, Berlin. I would probably even pull in samples because you can drop samples into Battery too. But maybe they would have some that worked. Yeah, for sure, Manny. That's what they called him in high school too. Henry, I think in enhancing the low end, while enhancing the low end, it was just the low end got okay, but there wasn't enough kind of separation in the high end to give it that attack that toms need to not just be mud.
And body. Like everything about the sound is kind of, it's just kind of wonky and disjointed. IMO. Those are the technical industry terms, by the way. Wonky.
Yeah.
That's what we use. Wonky. That's right. I'm not really gonna overcomplicate this. This is a plugin called Trigger from Stephen Slate Drums. And what we're going to do is we're going to have these waveforms, these transients, are going to trigger the samples using this plugin. And I'm just going to go and pick a tom that I know I like. That's somewhat close to the same pitch. I'm going to kind of zoom in here, kind of get set up so that I can roll through this a whole bunch of times. Close enough. We're going to crank the gain in, hit harder. Just that one. And then I'm going to copy over the same settings to our middle tom. Tuning it up a little bit. It's floor tom.
It's a Stephen Slate plugin. There's lots of stuff you can use, though. You could use the Logic drum replace. You could use Trigger. Battery.
I'll show you how to do this in Logic too.
SSD5.
I would retune all of these also. If I wasn't following the tuning of these sounds, I would just redo all of this. Like I would probably just use the original tuning of the samples because they're just nicely, they're in nice increments. Just go with that for now.
Oh. Much better.
Sounds like a real kit. Right.
Sounded like sampled toms before.
I'm going to go ahead and actually do a bit of a switcheroo on this. I think that first tom, it's a taste thing for me, right? So like at this point, I would go through my tom library and I would play with like a whole bunch of different tom sounds. I'm not going to go deep down that rabbit hole today. I really just kind of want to show you the concept of drum replacement in order to fix sound selection, right? So again, I'm not going to like dig through all of the toms and like go through a whole bunch of different methods on what I would actually do here, because that would probably take about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. We got a lot to cover today, right? So instead, I'm just going to make a small tweak to tom 1. I'm going to make that a little bit lower. Tom 2, I'm just going to make that, I'm going to put that to tom 3. I'm just changing the samples so that they're 1 lower. That's a taste thing for me. See what we got. I just like lower toms.
So much better. Yeah, great move.
Now there's all of that girth, right? And that weight and that bombastic nature that you get when you're behind the drum kit, when you're actually playing and when you're actually seeing a drummer play live. You get like that, all those toms are mic'd in the PA and the subs are actually like catching a lot of that low end kind of bombast, right? We're getting that. Before, we were getting this. Now we got this.
So much better.
Hear the difference? Ones in chat, you guys following me? Following me so far?
Yeah, you couldn't even hear them really before. They were just so muddy. They just muddied up everything.
And I really like the idea of like the 80s tom there. You know what I mean? The really poppy 80s tom. But if we were going to go in that direction, something that matches a little bit more with the tonality and the body of the snare would, I think, probably carry the messaging and be a stronger move to be able to kind of like translate.
And the artist will never know. They'll be like, why do those toms sound so good? Thank you, if anything.
I get that all the time. I've done complete bass track replacement with like MIDI programmed bass. I've gone that far for a replacement with just like poorly performed bass, right? Yeah, it's real. It's real. Happens. I will never divulge the list of people I've done that for, though. That's that I'd take to my grave. Sorry, guys. You know, we usually say no secrets here. There are no secrets. That one is the exception. So I'm just gonna push, you know, some of these sounds just a little bit more, push the intensity of the drums a little bit more, right? So that they hit harder. So I'm just increasing the input gain. And typically what you'd want to do with a plugin like this that's based on the waveform, you know, the transient of the waveform, is go through the entire track, make sure everything gets caught correctly so that your thresholds are all correct and they're not picking up, you know, your triggering plugin isn't picking up any kind of like weird sustain or background noise or anything like that, right? We're not going to go through that process today, but do know that you should take the time to listen all the way through any triggered tracks to make sure there are no anomalies going on. Okay. This one, which we just heard, not sure if that is intended or not, right? Doesn't look like it, right? It's triggering twice here, and there's only one transient, right? So it's picking up the thresholds too low here, right? If we were to just listen to this, it's one hit, right? And it's picking it up as two hits. So we would then have to go in here. This perfect example. Like, how does that happen? We go in here and then just adjust the settings a little bit, adjust the sensitivity. All right, maybe turn the sensitivity down. There it is, right? But now I have to go through the track and make sure that that sensitivity works for all of the other waveforms, right? Looks like it does. Again, I'm just doing this very quickly. I would be much more meticulous about this if it wasn't for demonstration purposes. Cool, all that seems right. And then once I'm happy with the sound like that, I just bounce these in place. So I'm baking in the triggering to the track, right? So now I got a nice new little waveform here without having the trigger plugin just kind of activating and munching up CPU or anything like that. I'm just committing to the sound and moving forward. All right, and you'll see. There it is. There are the new tracks. Tom 1, Tom 2, and Tom 3. If I ever need to go back to these, I'm just going to label them as prime. So Tom 2 prime, Tom 3 prime. All right, select these, and I'm going to hide them. Whoop. Now they're gone. And I have brand new Tom tracks that we can now work with. Cool. else we can do here. So just for the heck of it. Just kind of want to experiment a little bit. What happens when we blend these in underneath? Nothing. Oh, because I still have trigger on it. Sounds kind of silly. They changed the pitch and the tuning and everything like that, right? Ideally, I would go back to the production process and spend a lot of time really dialing in these snares and getting the right sounds, right? That's what I would do.
It's better, though.
Today.
It's definitely better.
What's that?
It's definitely better.
Yeah, I think so. We're just going to clean them up and give them a little bit more punch. Let's give them some more width also. So I'm gonna bring these, just kind of pan these out just a little bit. The original toms, we had all three toms baked into the same track, and that was also panned for us. So now we just got to do a little bit of manual panning here. Right, just kind of putting it left to right across the stereo field. Ooh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Some weird thing just happened. Okay. Can you still hear the music?
No. Oh, yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome possum. Giving it a little bit more brightness so that they kind of balance in the top end with the snare drum. Right? Kind of hitting a little bit harder now. A bit more of an attack. A little overboard. Methinks. This last tom, this floor tom. slamming. Haven't decided whether I'm going to do this directly on the track or not. Yeah, let's do it. You know what? Let's try it on the bus first, see if we can get away with it.
You can add some more use compressor to add some more punch.
That's right. Exactly right. I might actually start the transient shaper. And what I like to do is kind of like A/B transient shaping with compression to see which I like better. Typically on drums, I end up going with the compressor. Slowest attack, fastest release. You know, we're gonna start with a 6-to-1 ratio. Slam them.
Yeah, this is on the bus.
You do it on the bus, it has kind of like this gluing effect as well. Right? Kind of like it makes them sound a little bit more cohesive.
Transient shapers just kind of give you control over how much of the attack and how much of the tail you want. It does similar things to a compressor, just a different kind of platform.
I like the feel of a compressor in this scenario. You can use either, but I actually might also put a transient shaper after the compressor and just turn up the sustain a little bit, right? So I'm actually getting like more of the slow attack. I'm getting the more of the punch from the compressor and a little bit of the glue on the bus. But then, you know, my thought is, can I get a little bit more of kind of like the ring of the toms to make them sound a little bit bigger? I don't know if it'll work, but I'm going to try it. Right, now we're starting to get that same effect that the original toms had with that really ringy kind of like sustain on the tail end of the hit. Before. Pretty dry, and then nice big tail on the end of it, right? So that might be a little bit too much, but we're gonna have to see what it sounds like in context, right? Yeah, and I'm gonna get the curve of this filter like right at that 80 to 100 point. I'm getting a little too much buildup. There it is. That fixed it. I want more from that floor tom, so I'm gonna turn that up. Cool. Sounds good.
Worth it.
I'm happy with that so far. I mean, honestly, the build up and the drums are going to take up all of our time today. So we've got quite a bit more to do on those drums. That's Tom's. But in order to make these sound a little bit more cohesive, we're going to play around with some saturation, and we're going to create some spatial processing. But before we get into that, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Sweet.
Hope that's cool.
Bio break.
Yeah. Quick bio break.
See you in 5.
Cool. Coolio. Good with everyone. All right. Yep. Quick bio break. We're gonna do a 5-minute. I'll bring up a timer here. Not just any timer, but my favorite timer, the Goog. You can just go right into Google and type in timer, and this is what pops up. Simple, sweet. Don't worry, guys. I'm not gonna gyp you of 6 minutes. Unless I do. Okay, cool. 5 minutes on the clock. Bio break. Get your refills. I gotta fill up my coffee, my decaf. Back in 5 with some more drum stuff. See you in a few. What's up, guys? What's going on? Any questions before we move on? Happy to answer any questions before we jump back in here. Brain hurts? Nick, thanks for sparing me. Can I run down what I previously did with these plugins here, Emma? Yeah, all we did was scoop out some of the low end that was a little bit rumbly. And then I added a little bit of high end here to kind of get the stick click to come forward a little bit. Right, the attack on the tom. And with these plugins here, I used some slow attack compression to make the toms a little bit more punchy. And then I used a transient shaper and I turned up the sustain of the transients, right? The sustain is what happens after that initial burst of energy, that initial loud noise, right? So it's basically the ring of the snares or the room of the snares. I turned that up to make the snare or the toms sound bigger. I said snares, but I meant toms. Yep, and I used a high ratio on those toms. I mean, I could even use a little bit more punch out of them, so. Yep, just a little bit more of a realer feel to it. And again, I would spend a lot more time with sound design and pushing back on the production here to get just a overall better sound for these toms. Right up front, I'm just showing you like very down and dirty way. I want you to take away the concepts here, first and foremost, right? The idea that you can use these tools to accomplish certain results. These are third-party plugins. This one's a Logic plugin. These are from Slate Digital. But you can use, you can use any compressor you want or any transient shaper you want. Anyone you like. I did not buy the added CLA drum kit, no. How many years have I been an engineer? As long as I can remember. It's like I started when I was 15. Is Trigger free? No, Trigger's not free. Comes at a price. What are your computer specs? I don't know. It's an M1 Mac Studio. How old am I now? 37? I have to ask my wife. I do have kilohertz transshaper. Yep. Yeah, I recorded analog. Are you able to drink yet? No, I did not. No, I've never cut physical tape. Nope. Let's see. Did you study at college? Nope. I tried it. Didn't like it. Did you play any instruments? Most of them. What's your advice on making vocals sit in the mix? We're going to see that tomorrow. That's day 3 stuff. What's the most common pushback you have to give to producers you work with? Interesting. It's always, honestly, it's always different. It's usually sound selection stuff, though. That's usually what it is. It's sound selection. It's like frequency masking because of sound selection, or maybe there's like too many things. It's usually too many things. That's usually the pushback I have to give to like, or the feedback that I most commonly give to producers or artists that I work with. There are too many things here. It's an arrangement and sound design pushback, typically. Yeah, music production pays all my bills. Maria. Cool. Dude, I would love to answer all of your questions right now, guys, but we got a lot to do here, so I hope I hit the big ones. I hope I hit the big ones. Who's ready to move on? We'll do like more Q&A sessions as we kind of like make our way through these. 11111. All right, Jeffrey, I got it. All right. Cool. Let's go. All right. Let's bring these drums together a little bit more. I'm just taking this kick drum down a decibel. And that's a shelf at 100 hertz. Seems just a little bit heavy to me. We might go back on that. And I'm actually going to roll it off at 30 hertz. Just to kind of clear up and save some of this sonic energy down there. Got some cymbals here. I'm going to go ahead and group those cymbals together to a cymbals bus. So now I have like all these buses. I have a kick, snare, toms, and cymbals bus. So I've got a few things here that I want to try with these drums. First, I want to create kind of like, I want to create a room mic for these drums. All right, so again, this is like me going a little bit off script here. Typically, when we do spatial processing, we use what I like to call the 3 buckets method. Right? 3 buckets method is this. you have 3 buckets: drums, instruments, and vocals. I'm going to write this on the side here. And you create aux tracks for each one of these kind of instrument categories. Drums gets a short reverb and a long reverb, right? And you can see I've already got this set up right here. A drums short verb and a drums long verb. Right? Instruments get their own long and short reverbs. A short reverb and a long reverb. So short reverb here and a long reverb here for instruments, right? And then vocals, you guessed it, folks, get their own reverbs, long and a short. I also, personally, I like to include delays for my vocals as well. So I'll do a short delay and a long delay. Right. Each one of these reverbs is a different type of reverb, okay? Meaning the short reverb is a different type of reverb than the drum long reverb, right? I've got a longer plate for my drums, and that's different than my large chamber reverb that I have for my drums short, right? So all of these, this drum short reverb is different than this long verb, which is different than this instrument short reverb, which is different than this instrument long verb, so on and so forth, right? So this is what we've kind of found to be like the sweet spot between, you know, not too different, but different enough from one another, right? Excuse me. Hopefully that all makes sense.
Yep. Again, we're going for enough diversity, but not too much. We found this to be a really good starting spot for that. Can you break these rules when needed? Of course. But if you start here, you're giving things their own kind of space. The drums will separate from the instruments will separate from the vocals, and they'll separate from each other depending on short and long, just enough to get that beautiful separation we want in a mix without it sounding chaotic. So this is cool. You can build a mix template. I'm not all about templates, but if you wanted to have these, at least have these auxiliary buses in your mix session set up, and then you can change the verbs as as the song it requires, based upon what will work for the emotional intent. And then a lot of people get hung up. They start trying to think about the emotional intent too early. You kind of just have to start somewhere. So you just start with maybe some of your go-tos, but really listen as you start to apply this and make sure it fits that emotional scene.
Exactly. And you just start somewhere. I just like scrolled through a bunch and landed on one and then just started using that. If I need to change up the reverb sound as we kind of make our way through the song, then I will. It's really easy to do in the information age, the post-information age. So I'll show you what this looks like. Let's say I want my drums to have a little bit of room reverb. I'm going to send them to my short drum room bus, right? And then I'm going to start blending. Just take a listen. We got our drums sitting in a space rather than like super dry and up front, right? You hear the difference there? Pretty subtle. That's just the idea, right? And then we can get even more granular with it, right? If we didn't want to send as much kick to that reverb, we could bring the kick down so it's not as boomy. We want more on the snare and the toms. All right. We want more or less on the cymbals. Right? That's how it works. Now, I've got all of these sent to these drums short and long over here that's in a separate kind of bus, right? Labeled wet effects. All right, this is where all my stuff is. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you something a little bit more, I guess on the advanced side, I guess a little bit more complicated, which is I'm going to take these reverbs out of this wet effects bus, and I'm actually going to put them in my drum bus. So now I've got these reverbs sitting in my drum bus. And I'm going to show you why I'm doing this in a moment. But for now, I'm just going to dial in kind of like a basic kind of reverb, room reverb here. I'm going to send all of these kick, snare, toms, and cymbals all the same level to this drum short verb. And I'm going to call it room. Basically, I'm creating like a fake room mic here. Right? So like if you were to mic drums, you know, a common technique is to close mic the drums and then maybe toss a couple mics, you know, out in the hallway, or toss a couple mics towards the other end of the room or something like that to capture the ambience of the room, right? To capture the space, right? In the stairwell, exactly, right? Classic, like John Bonham recording, right? Stick the drum kit in the stairwell and then capture all the space, right, in the recording. So I'm sending all of the signal to this room track, and that in solo. Sounds like that, right? That's a chamber, and we can change up that reverb. Let's do, I don't know, I could just play with a bunch of them, right? Large wood room, what's that sound like? Right? So many options, right? What about this music club? Play with a couple of them here. Kind of like that large chamber. Let's listen to them all together. Here's without. And then with, right? We'd start to get a sense of space and some width and some depth along with those drums, like maybe the drummer's playing in a room, right? In an actual space. Still not crazy about where we're at in terms of that room, so I'm just going to kind of play with it a little bit. Just gonna bear with me. I'm just gonna scroll through just a few presets. I'm gonna go back to that chamber. I really like the way it sounds. I think it's cool. I'm actually gonna do some tone shaping on it a little bit though. Roll off the high end. Not quite as slappy. Roll off the low end here too. I want a little bit of bump, you know, a little bit of bottom end. Cool. We're gonna send a little less kick. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, Rob. I was thinking the cymbals are too hissy also. So get your drinks ready.
Uh-oh.
Go to this chorus. The difference here, guys, in context, I'm just gonna mute and unmute just the room. Is that it sounds like a drummer now,
Yeah.
right?
Sounds a lot more real. A lot less like samples, which I think they probably are.
Just wait. Wait, we're gonna step this up. We're gonna elevate this even more.
Whoa.
There's a reason. Yeah, take it breathes. Also, take a breath. Someone guessed it. Someone guessed it. Yeah, we're gonna do some bus processing. Right? Remember when I grabbed these reverb tracks and put them into the drum bus? There's a reason for that. It's because I want my drum bus processing to actually affect my fake room track and kind of pull all of this together, right? This isn't something that you have to do. This is just a texture that I personally enjoy and I think sounds really cool.
This is a first for Fix the Mix. You've never done this move before live.
I've never done a lot of the stuff we talked about today. We're going deep on drums today,
Yeah.
guys. Going way off script.
Yep. Are you guys sad about it? I don't think they're sad, Jake.
A little bit of a drum workshop, I guess. As a drummer, I approve. We got a drummer's approval. We're good to go.
I mean, the guitars need some cleaning up, but the real culprit here was getting these drums sounding absolutely great.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Let's do it. Let's get in there. So right now we're just going to do like a little bit of kind of like, we're just going to like season this thing, right? The majority of the meal is done, right? We just now add some herbs and spices. And this is like the flavor that's just going to make this thing kind of like,
Ooh, a cooking analogy. I'm in.
for you,
Let's go.
all for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive this through a few different stages of saturation to introduce more imperfections into the sound. First stage is going to be a little bit of tape. I say a little bit of tape and then the needle just like slams. So we can choose to go a little bit more vibey with it, with the 456, and it actually has kind of like more of a mid-range kind of bump, right? But I really like the attack and like the high end that is already here in these drums, and I want to kind of keep that intact. So I'm gonna flip it to FG9 instead. You can hear, you know, if you listen really carefully, I'm just gonna flip this switch back and forth. You can hear the differences in the tone that's happening. Right? A little bit more top end with the FG9. So that's where I'm going to stay. I like how that sounds. And then there's the with and without, right? Cool. I'm happy with that. These are very, very subtle, like 1% kind of moves, guys. You know, we've done all the heavy lifting now. I'm also going to drive this kit through some console saturation. Again, probably another first for FTM Fix the Mix. I don't think I've talked about console emulation on a previous Fix the Mix, but just another layer of saturation. We're going to see how it affects the sound. I like to start with the drive all the way up here. And then I'll just kind of flip through the different consoles. Tube always has like a more vintagey kind of sound to it, you know, which I really, really enjoy. Not sure if it's right for this song. I like the Neve or the SSL. Listen to what it's doing to the snare, right?
That's where you
Listen
hear it the
to the snare
most.
drum.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. This is where you can like really tell for sure, right? So I'm just gonna go back and forth between the Neve and the SSL. I could go either way. You know,
The
When I
SSL's doing a nicer thing to the cymbals, in my opinion.
yeah, it's letting them breathe a little bit better. Let's listen in context. Yep. SSL gets it for me. Done. Mix done. Now I'm going to add some extreme compression on this channel. Extreme compression. Just like aggressive, next level compression here. Okay. But I'm going to do it in parallel, right? So I'm going to use the mix knob to dial in just a touch of it, right? Fast attack, fast release on this thing, and just like cranking it. You know, I've got like between 10 20 decibels of gain reduction happening here. Dial it back. Wait. Difference? So there's a little bit of pumping that's going on here. What's happening is the compressor is ducking the high end of the cymbals a little bit every time the kick, the snare, or the toms hit, which I'm actually okay with. I'm okay with a little bit of pumping there. That's why I only dialed it in just a touch, right? If I wanted a little bit more pumping, I can dial this in even more. Really want to touch. And then if I wanted less pumping, I could actually use the internal sidechain filter on this compressor so that it doesn't listen to frequencies up to 250 hertz. But I actually like the pumping, so I'm going to leave it in. I think it sounds great in context. Yeah, I like the sound of the room mics also pumping a little bit with the kit. This is why I brought the room mics into the drum bus. It's weird. I know it's a weird thing. It's not how you would like actually hear it in real life, but there's something about that space that compressing the room mics really just kind of like draws attention to more of the sustain and makes the kit feel a little bit bigger. It's kind of an odd phenomenon. Let me turn up the room just so you can kind of hear that. It's this effect, but very, very, very subtle, basically, right? Very difficult to hear. It's more of like it's felt more than heard kind of thing, right? Yeah, almost like a vacuum. That's a good way to put it. If you wanted more of that effect, like I've done this before too. I'm showing you all the secrets today. All my secrets, all my little tricks. If you wanted more of that effect, you can just compress the room channel. Okay, last little tweak. Yeah, I agree, Sean. Like I do. It does sound like a little bit more. It's kind of it plays tricks on your ears a little bit, right? It's not how you would necessarily hear that room sound, right? Not necessarily how you would hear that in real life. But it's got kind of a cool texture and cool kind of effect to it. I don't know. I'm into it. But it's less about today. It's less about taste. It's more about concepts and understanding how to use the tools to accomplish specific goals. Last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to tame the dynamics, because we can see that, you know, there are like there's a lot of punch happening here, and I want to try to save a little bit more headroom. So I'm going to use a clipper to do that. If you take a look at this track, dancing all over the place, right? The signal level is dancing all over the place. So I'm thinking, okay, be nice to your future self. Tame the dynamics here a little bit.
So this is what I was talking about before. This will save you a ton of headroom. Watch this closely. This is very important if you want your mastering engineer or your future self to be happy with this.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna clip the tops of the waveform a little bit. If we just pause this waveform, take a look at this. Look at that waveform. I'm just going to, yeah, this is only showing you what the drums are doing. Right? So we've got a wide dynamic range happening here. The highest peak is way up here, and then the lowest point of that signal is way down here, right? So I just kind of want to narrow that dynamic range without sacrificing all the punch. All right, I want to keep it nice and punchy. I want to narrow the dynamic range, but keep it nice and punchy at the same time, right? Clipping is a great way to do this on drums, especially, because it literally just clips off the top of the waveform. And because of the way that it does it, using like a saturation, basically, it sounds like the punch is still there. So let's bring the ceiling down, and we're going to clip the tops of those waveforms. We're going to do it while we're playing. Hey, so without clipping, check this out. This meter right here for drums. -6, 6.8. Now let's clip it a little bit. Peaking at -9.2, right? So it's 3. Yeah, exactly. It's about 3 decibels of headroom, and the drums don't sound different.
They don't sound different. They don't sound quieter. They don't sound distorted. It's not too much. All you're doing is saving yourself a headache later of dealing with those transients, and it's just saved energy. It's not making a difference. You could use a limiter here. You can use a clipper. They're very similar.
Or tasty drums. Any questions there, guys? We could do more tweaking on these drums, but we're gonna move on today.
You got the big picture stuff, right, everybody?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, big picture concepts, right? How, the why using the tools, why approaching things in a very specific way. It's more about the mindset.
The
It's more
why
about what the intent is behind the moves.
the why is
then-
everything here. The what doesn't matter. The plug-in doesn't matter. Despite the YouTube videos that'll tell you, do these 5 things and win a Grammy. You
Whether
don't
you
don't ever
like-
do anything all the time. You understand the principles so that you can use it when it's needed.
Yeah, and whether you like the sound, like taste-wise, whether you prefer this drum sound doesn't matter either at this point. It's more about the concepts and it's more about the intent and understanding how to get to where you want to go.
These are similar moves you could use across genre too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Similar concepts, similar principles.
Cool. Happy to answer a couple questions before we take a break and move on. How long is the class? Probably just going to do another hour or so today. Are you getting the recordings, as in the replay of this session? Yes, it's in the school platform. Just log into school. It's in the classroom section, Stephanie. I don't know if I'm using, I don't know what version of Logic I'm using.
It's not the newest one. It's not the latest 10.8. It's the one before that.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I haven't updated to a most recent one.
There are free clippers.
How much clipping did I just apply? I usually like to apply as much as I can get away with without it like distorting the track.
Yeah, go until you can hear it and then pull it back a little bit so you can't hear it and just see how much headroom you can save. All that headroom is just a wonderful thing to save for later.
What's your favorite sandwich? A cheeseburger. Is a cheeseburger a sandwich?
I'm going to go
think
with
it's a sandwich, right?
I'm going to go with maybe.
If not, cheeseburger club. How much does DAW choice matter? That's a good question. Not as much as people might have you believe.
Doesn't really matter.
But-
Just get good
but
at what you have.
Yeah, but enough for it to matter that you feel comfortable, right? That's all it comes down to. Do you feel comfortable in the DAW?
Yeah, it doesn't matter externally. It matters internally to you. What's your best recommended free clipper, Jake?
Probably Venn Audio free clip.
Venn Audio, VENN Audio, free clip.
Yep, free clip.
Clipper and a limiter are slightly different. A limiter limits the transient, a clipper literally chops it.
Why? I'm gonna ask, why did you choose those specific plugins over other ones? Are you just used to them? Yeah, I'm just used to them. They're just my go-to tools. Yep. Everybody's gonna have like they're just kind of like go-to tools. I knew that I wanted a tape, like this is how I think of it. I know that I wanted a tape saturation, right? From there, it's like, okay, you can pick you can pick a million tape saturators and then just play with them, right? That's just the one that I like. That's what I think of. I don't think of like, oh, I'm going to use this plugin. I think, what type of effect do I want? Do I want compression? Do I want transient shaping? Do I want tape saturation? Do I want console saturation? Do I want clipping? Right? I don't think about the plugin itself. I think about the process, right? The effect that I want to, how I want to manipulate the audio signal. Right?
Yeah, we've done these sessions with stock plugins. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. And those are just my go-to tools. You know, I select tools that are easy to use personally, that are easy to use and sound good. You know, simpler interfaces, easier to use, sound good. Right?
That tape machine is a Slate one as well.
No, I'm not considering the reference track at all at this point. I'm just going with my gut for these drums. I would, you know, in that scenario, if the artist was like, "Hey, I want my drums to sound like, you know, this. I want them to sound like B, but I received A." Like, that's a conversation. That's a discussion. Yeah, typically I would be making a lot of these decisions just based on the artist and the reference. Today I'm just going based on my gut.
Yeah, we'll compare it back in the end, though. We'll always come back to an objective foundation.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Should we take 5 and then finish this thing up? There's quite a bit of work to do in the mid-range with the guitars and that synth, that
brass synth.
that brass synth, which is driving me a little crazy.
All right. We'll give it 5. Bio break. I'm gonna bring up a timer, not just any timer, my favorite timer, the Goog. We're gonna put 5 minutes on the clock. Fire it up. See you in 5. Hi. What's happening? Did everybody have a good break? Made a sandwich. Nick had 2 White Castle cheeseburgers. Nice. Somebody ate some olives. I have not broken my fast yet today. Someone had a steak. It's awesome. Steak break. Somebody's wondering when the long reverb's going to come in. I don't know. There might not be an opportunity for long reverb in this session. We'll see. We're not there yet. I went and bought a 1 year to Slate. Thanks. Tell him I sent you. Axhot, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. How does oversampling affect the audio? The best way to hear what oversampling is doing is to run a few tests on your own. That's like my short answer for you on that. You can go down the rabbit hole with oversampling. Totally. However deep you want to go there. I oversample. I guess I just don't obsess over oversampling. I oversample when I can. If it's an option, I might just click it on, as long as it's not killing my CPU or anything like that. What can you use to test? Anything. Anything. Yeah, if you have any like plugins or anything like that that have oversampling, you just click the option on and off and see if your ears can detect what it's doing. If not, it's probably not going to be a needle mover for you. You know, probably not something to really dig into. But we're not gonna get down that. We're not gonna go down that path today. Buffer settings for mixing, I just go as high as I can possibly go, and for like recording, I just go as low as I can possibly go. Do you prefer detailed direction from the artist, or would you prefer to have creative control? It depends on what the artist is like. You know, it really depends on the artist's personality and what their emotions are, what the emotions are tied to their work. You know, you got to get a sense for each artist. I can tell you that, you know, like the artists that I like to work with the most feel more like collaborations. Right? So they're the ones that are just like, hey, like I have this idea, like I love your taste, you just like run with it, and then maybe we'll make some tweaks. Right? But I have other artists who have like very like particular sounds in mind. And I like to give them as much, or I like to get as much guidance from them as possible. So it depends. Depends on who you're working with. It's artists, man. You're working with artists. You know, everybody deserves their own, and everybody's their own person, so everybody deserves their own kind of attention. It's never like black and white for me. Yeah, I don't obsess over like pre or post fader too much. I just use whatever's standard in Logic. I think it's post fader. Unless I need to for whatever reason, but I can't even name a reason, to be honest. Can't remember the last time I did like a pre-fader send. If you're not hearing like the saturation changes, Marty, it's, you know, it's probably might be ear training. You know, it could be your room lying to you. Said you're in headphones. You know, very, very subtle, you know, saturation is very, very subtle kind of changes, you know. So it requires like a lot of either practice, experience, or ear training, or all three. Yeah, you can use 3 buckets in the producing stage, sure. Cool. Let's move on, guys. I think I'm pretty happy with where the drums are right now. I'll do a reference check on those in a little bit, just to make sure. Let's kind of go from the beginning and kind of get a sense of where we are. Brought that snare down in volume a little bit. It was a little bit too far forward. I wanted to sound a little more like a part of the kit. We know where that's coming from. We know exactly where all of that's coming from. Right there. All right. Turn off that brass lead for a second. So right now I'm just putting a dip in the bus, the guitar bus. Just around this 500 to 1K area. I'm gonna get a a little bit more granular with it here. Bust these choir leads together. What we got? Yeah, I'm gonna go in here with the scalpel and just kind of like carve out some space here. Difference. With the cut. Where's the harshness? It's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. Let's check these. Okay, so we have a lot going on in that upper, like this 2000 area. Let's see if we can get rid of that, some of that stuff. Right? You'll hear those guitars moving. Right? Need it to live in this spot in order to hear them. One might argue that you can actually hear them better now that there isn't the masking happening in the upper mids. So I'm gonna grab a filter and just filter out the low end there too. Bit more of that. Listen to this. Hear all that honky information? It's almost if you can make this sound, that's what we're hearing. Right? And then when I pop the EQ on, goes away. Let's listen again. We go back and forth. Hear the difference? 2K. Let's check out these chimes. What are we hearing? Right? Exactly. Let's save that space. Doesn't need to be there.
It's exactly the spot where the vocals need to be shining through as well a lot of the time.
Right in there.
They're just going to be competing.
Right? And we are like altering the sound quite a bit, right? But in context.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good soloed.
No.
It doesn't need to, though.
Not too much. There's like a resonant frequency that that's hitting me a little bit in here. In there.
Oof.
That ring?
Wah.
Yeah, hear that ring? I just got rid of that. It still sounds terrible, right? Like, before and then after. We've kind of carved out a ton of information. Let's get it in the mix, though. What is it? The name is this lick? Nope. There's another lick in here. I think this is square lead. Probably do with a rebalance here a little bit too. We got so much buildup happening here, though. Those parts will never play independently of each other. They will always play together. These two parts, right? This part right here. And this part right here. They will always play at the same time, right? So knowing that, it means we can be a little bit more aggressive with our moves on one track or the other track. What are we doing over here? Yeah, you know, I might just do that. This as well. Kind of like let it live, like right here, like just tickly.
Choosing the best part of this sound and kind of getting rid of everything else.
Yeah. I'm gonna grab this. Same thing. Cool. And then we're gonna zoom out. Grab these twinkles. Same thing here. I want one of them to have a little bit more body. So much sonic energy dipping it down in the mix a little bit. So I'm just compensating for the cuts. There we go. That's probably the biggest trouble area. I also am gonna just lightly tap this in the 1500 to about 4K range with some soothe.
Thank you so much.
Getting your goat a little bit.
It's still drilling me a little bit.
You should come work in my world. This is soft serve ice cream in my world. It's there, dude. Right in that side.
Boom, baby.
Do another step further and just kind of like roll off everything
Yeah, we don't need any of that hissiness here.
right there. Our bus here, by the way. Yeah, I agree, man. Let's get that octave. Somebody said the octave became a little bit more buried. But think about this too. You know, what do we got going on in vocal land in this spot? We have vocals going right over this section, right? So there's going to be a vocal element that comes into play here eventually anyway. So do we want to draw attention to it? Do we want it to be more textural? You know, I'm inclined to just kind of like prioritize the vocals a little bit more. But we can turn it up and see how it sounds. Turn it up a little bit. If you want to hear that. right? So like I really kind of castrated the low end on those lead guitars there. But because I saved all of that energy, it's kind of has a smaller space to kind of live within, and it actually makes it clearer and creates a little bit more separation. Hear the masking that's going on here? Right? Like there's a lot of masking happening here. Both of those parts are kind of tough to differentiate. And now let's add the EQ on the lead guitar. You're separated. Right? Totally separate. Bring the room mics down on that. A little bit of that like slappy thing happening on the hi-hat here. Right? You can hear like that slappy short room reflection happening in that section. Kind of rolled that out on the room mic. Sounded good now? Cool. Look at what we're seeing now. The curve. That's right. The curve. We're starting to see the curve. Now, when we bring vocals in, we're probably going to have to manage this a little bit more, right? Because we had the vocals. We're going to see probably where the vocal lives, right? In this little bump in here. So we will have to keep that in mind and probably have to do a little bit of kind of like circling around once we bring in the vocals, but I'm feeling pretty good about where that stuff is sitting right now. Shall we reference? I believe we shall.
So what do you listen?
Let's get our vocals in, just so it doesn't screw up the algorithm for level matching.
There's no
think we're in the ballpark here. I think we're great. You know, I think the mix that we have right now is actually a little bit more immersive than a lot of the references that we have here. I think maybe there's one or two that are a little bit more immersive than the others. But the reason, this is a really good lesson, guys. Like, the reason I like to use multiple references is because it gives you more of a ballpark mentality, right? It relieves you of the pressure of trying to copycat something. You're not trying to copy your reference tracks. You're trying to meet or beat them, right? And the reality is different mixes, every mix sounds different. Every single mix just sounds different, right? So relieve yourself of that pressure a little bit. Pull in 2, 3, 4, 5 mixes that you think sound great. And then pull in, you know, 1 or 2 mixes that you think sound not so great. And set the bar for yourself in terms of a range rather than one specific thing to try to copy. Make sense? I think we're pretty close, guys. In terms of the instruments, you know, there's some tweaking that still needs to happen here, a little bit here and there, but I think the major kind of movers have been tackled, and we still haven't mixed the vocals yet, right? So we still have to do a little bit of vocal work to kind of get this sitting where we need it to sit. But
you thinking you're just going to mute the horns?
At least for now, I'm going to wait until the vocals come in to see how they play with the vocals. So for now, I'm keeping the horns out. Once we get that focal point into the mix, the vocal that normally sits in the spotlight, we'll assess what the horns are trying to do. Are they trying to steal the spotlight away from the vocal, or are they there as a nice supporting element or a co-star to that vocal? Who knows, right? But we'll get to that. All on day 3. Any questions, guys, before we hop back in? We've got like, I think we have another lesson to teach real quick before we up today. Yeah.
Let's do that real quick. Gave you a mastering tool to use yesterday. We've been using the paths today. I hope you're getting kind of a bit of an understanding of how that works, and it's kind of informing, right? You can look at it and you can see the effect that you are applying to the track in real time. And it's objective. Of course, at the end of the day, we have to do what's right for the track, but it helps you pull things within a ballpark, which I think is really valuable. So another tool I want to help you with today is dynamics. And we actually had a pretty good demonstration of this earlier. When we looked at those drums, we could see that there were these rogue transients. A lot of times that's hard to see in a mix. It's easier to see in a master because you bounce everything down to a stereo track. When you pull it into the new session, all of a sudden it's either going to look pretty well controlled or it's going to have all these transient spikes in it, which are then hard to control. You, as the mastering engineer, you push back on the mix, you give them a call and say, hey, we need to control those a little bit more because I won't be able to master this to the effective loudness if this is what you send me, or at least it will be harder for me to. Why don't we fix these in the mix? So we found a tool that you can actually apply to your mix session, though, that will give you this information so you don't have to wait to bounce it down to see these transients. Again, this is what it would look like if you got a mastering session like this. We got some problems because either I'm dealing with those transients, which they need to be dealt with, or I'm not. And if I'm not, then I can't glue the track together. Mastering is just kind of that last little bit of glue. It's just supposed to subtly push everything together and make it a little more cohesive. If I have to deal with these transients, I'm not even getting to the core of the track to do that glue. I'm dealing with transients. So again, if we can solve these earlier. So Jake, why don't you show them this plugin? It's something you can start to apply like the paths onto your mix session to give you a glimpse of those transients it can give you insight into when we might need to tame them.
Yes. Yes. We like observation tools. More of them, please. Check this out. I'm going to use a free plugin by a company called Press Play. It's called Wave Observer. Remember when I pulled up the clipper before and it was showing you those waveforms kind of moving across that visual display? Right? This is the same exact thing, but it's designed to do just one thing. It's not designed to clip. It's just designed to observe, right? As the name implies. Check it out. My reference. You can tell that it's mastered, right? Because we see sausage, not buzzsaw. Then we change to mine. We'll see something a little bit different. I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling it's hypnotic. Dealing with damage to my mind. Buzzsaw. Right? We start to see a little bit more of that transient energy. That's probably the drums hitting, right? If I were to turn the drums off. I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling it's hypnotic. Dealing with damage to my mind. Pretty well controlled, right? We can see that the range is all pretty like consistent, solid, right? Now let's bring those drums back in. I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling it's hypnotic. Dealing with damage to my mind. Memories are tragic. Dude, like still, like pretty solid.
Pretty good.
It just informs you. It just informs you of where things are popping up.
Let's quickly show what we would do to tame those a little bit more. So if you saw this, what do you learn from it? The drums might be either a little too loud, maybe they're not limited or compressed enough. So then we can go in. We applied a clipper. Maybe we need to do some more of that, or maybe we just need to turn things down a little bit. Let's see how we could make this look a little bit more controlled right now.
Yeah, so knowing what we know now with the Wave Observer, we've seen those hits happen. We've seen those transients happen, that big fat audio energy, right? And it's most likely coming from the low end of the kick and the punch of the snare, right? Those are probably the offenders. So I'm going to go in here to the kick, and I'm going to see if we can save some headroom here by clipping it a little bit more on the bus, on the individual track. Let's see. See how much headroom we can save on this. Starting to hear distortion there, right? Probably right around there is that's around 3 decibels of gain reduction. So we're gonna save about 3. What's that? A lot, so 12, yeah.
Almost 4.
All right, almost. Cool. Snare. Let's do the same. So grab a clipper. Flip that bad boy. How much we can get away with. Probably fatten that snare up a little bit too. Clippers are so great on drums, man. They're just so. Saved quite a bit there, right? So peaking at about -12 here, and then we clip it. Yeah, -14. So save a couple decibels there.
Some people get excited. Some people get excited about cars or money or shiny things. I get buzzing whenever we save a little bit of energy, transient energy in a mix, whether through EQ or compression. That's what gets me going, I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
I lay awake at night thinking about just saving transient energy.
Saving transient energy, saving sonic energy, rebalancing the spectrum.
Mm,
That's all talking dirty to me.
so hot.
I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling automatic, dealing with damage to my mind. Memories are tragic, temporary.
Look at that. Would you look at it?
Would you look at it? Just look at it.
Just look at it. Right? Look at how much energy we saved.
By that spiky one right there is the tom, by the way.
That one?
Yeah,
That makes sense.
it's the tom.
That's what we didn't that's what we didn't clip. Let's
Yep.
take care of it. Save that headroom.
Would you look at it? Just look
Did you
at it.
look at it? Just look at it. Come on, Toms. There we go. Wow.
Look at those spiky little mofos.
Sweet. Look how much we got away with there.
Wow.
It's like six decibels.
Wow.
So here's the thing. This is why clippers are great on drums too, right? Because drums, like some drums will just like hit so super hard that the saturation effect of pushing a clipper so hard actually benefits the attack of the drum.
Yeah.
Right?
Gives it some bite sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives it a little bit of bite. Right. It's cool. I am just quick diversion. Want to see how that sits in the mix.
I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling automatic, dealing with damage to my mind. Memories are tragic.
Again, this is like my taste, right? I just love like a deep, that deep shotgun snare that just like punches you right in the gut,
On this style for sure.
I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling
Hear the difference there, guys? From like hitting a pencil on a piece of paper to just like wailing and just punching somebody right in the gut. It's lower, like Caleb was talking about. I think was it today or yesterday? It's all one long day to me.
Yeah. Days run together. Will you do one
There's
little
yesterday.
will you do
Where
one,
is-
do me one little flavor on that?
Sure.
Put a little transient shaper on there.
Sustain.
Take that little resonant off. Let the reverb do the resonance. It's a little like resonant-y.
That ring. I think I had a note to fix that ring.
Yeah, the ring.
There
Just-
it is.
There it is. We think so alike. Let the room sound give the space, and we'll take that ring off. However you want to do it.
You want to do it with transient shaping?
I would, but you could do it with an EQ if you want.
Let's do both.
Okay, let's compare them.
You're going to be in a few spots.
That's why I like the transient shaper, because all of a sudden you're doing like 4 or 5 different little
Yeah, little
spiky
comb
deals.
cuts. Yeah, doing some comb cuts. You want to do it on just the snare body or the? I mean, this is where the offending track.
Yeah,
is,
that's where
right?
I think so.
Yeah. So he says, turn down the sustain.
Man, it's still there.
Let's hear it as a whole.
It's better. It's better, but still there a little.
Yep. And never to be heard in context.
Yeah.
I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling it's hypnotic. Dealing with time is through my mind. Memories are tragic. Temporary bliss. Especially when my head.
And while we're at it, we've taken a really long road away from like talking about dynamics now, guys. Like, although we are still doing some dynamics like editing, I just want to toss one more thing in here.
We'll peek it out one more time when we're done, but are you gonna fatten that up a little more?
No, I want to tighten up the kick a little bit more.
Mm.
And we can do this in so many different ways, right? There's a ton of different ways to do it. I'm just going to start the transient shaper. And then I'm going to A-B it with something else. Oh, not all that, though. Get a compressor. I'm just going to slam it. Some slow attack. And now we'll just kind of A-B it. Let's try less sustain. Tighter. The compressor's tighter. See, we still get that kind of like woofiness still creeping in here with the transient shaper. With the compressor focused, tightens it right up. Now, I'm interested to know what would happen if we stacked a couple transient shapers here and took the sustain down all the way again. Tighter. Actually gonna loosen it up a little bit. Let's hear it in context.
I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling it's hypnotic, dealing with damage to my mind. Memories are tragic, temporary bliss, especially when I panic. I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling it's hypnotic, dealing with damage to my mind.
I still like the compressor better.
I'm leaving us behind.
It just yeah, that's it, Brandon. It just like allows the kick to be more focused but still have like that body and that boom, boom, you know, that thud, right?
I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling it's hypnotic, dealing with damage to my mind. Memories are tragic.
You can dial it back a little bit with the mix knob.
I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling it's hypnotic, dealing with damage to my mind. Memories are tragic, temporary bliss, especially when my
Tighter, we maintain the right amount of thud, in my opinion. Again, this is a thud that I'm comfortable with and a thud that I enjoy. Right? Everybody's gonna be different. Everybody's gonna fall different places on the spectrum. Your artists or your clients are gonna fall in different places of the spectrum too. Totally cool. I'm happy with this. I'm sticking with it.
Let's look at
I'm leaving us behind.
Anyway,
let's look at the paths and that other whatever you thing me one more time, and then we'll call it.
I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling it's hypnotic, dealing with damage to my mind. Memories are tragic.
that's a really nice curve right now without doing any vocal processing. Right? That means we killed a lot of the problem by taming those upper mids on those guitars, right?
I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling it's hypnotic, dealing with damage to my mind. Memories are tragic, temporary bliss, especially when I panic. I'm leaving us behind. I'm feeling it's hypnotic, dealing with damage to my mind. Memories are tragic, temporary bliss, especially when I panic.
Super cool. It's a
Great.
lot of the fixes, you know what I mean? So now that we've done a ton of the fixing kind of stuff, I can spend more time enhancing this mix and trying just like little things here and there, experimenting with some saturation to see how it affects different instruments. But for the most part, like this feels like a really good baseline to be at. All right, I feel pretty confident with that. And it's nice and immersive too. You know, it's wide, it's three-dimensional. There's a lot of depth to it. You know, it's super interesting. Kind of pulls you in. All right. Cool. All this I am happy with. Anything to wrap up? You got an assignment?
Yep, let's get to it.
Thanks, Caleb. You guys happy? You guys happy with this today? You got some like light bulb moments, aha moments.
Some nuggies.
Yeah, very new. That's okay. Just absorb it. You know, just take it in. Watch the process. Just try to follow along best you can. You know, engage in the osmosis that comes from just being with the community and being a part of these sessions. You know, the more you're around it, the more it just starts to become second nature, right? It'll soak in.
Just keep going. If you get stuck,
Nuggie.
just keep going. Write down
Nuggie.
questions, take notes. It's now your turn. Go ahead and do exactly what we were talking about today. Let's tame some frequencies. Let's clear out the mud. enhance when necessary. Same thing for dynamics. Let's get those controlled. And then try the buckets method on the instrumentals. There were maybe even some guitars that you could have a little bit of reverb on. Play with that stuff. Go for it. It's fun. See if it works for your process. Take what works inherently to you. Just what makes sense. There's no one way to do anything. Just take the underlying principle and find your way of doing it. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, a huge day, vocal day. It's the hardest part of mixing, in my opinion, is vocals. We're going to get to it. We're going to get these sounding really expensive. We did get the originals, right? The non-compressed ones, Jake.
We did. We got them as non-compressed as we could.
Sweet. Hey, it's better than nothing.
So yeah, and I did, guys, when I posted the multi-tracks yesterday, I did include those. Tristan was nice enough to just he got back to me right away. He sent those over really, really quick. So thank you again, Tristan. Thanks for the opportunity to work on your art, and thank you for sending those over so quickly, not just for me, but for the rest of the community to be able to have access to. Super awesome, man.
1000%. And thank you guys for being so cool and chat to each other and saying such nice things about us. We love you. We really do. I'm sick as a dog. I wouldn't miss this, though. I got to be here with you guys. I just couldn't miss it. So very excited to be here. We love doing it. And thank you so much for being awesome, being cool, and helping each other. That's what it's all about. We'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. Let's do vocals. Let's wrap this thing up. Then we'll master it for you, and we'll see how it sounds. We'll compare it to the original. Have a good one, y'all. Much love. See ya.
Later, guys.